Hi guys, you're talking with Courtney Black today, and today we're going to be discussing this idea of like a fan pandemic. So when people basically just take appreciation too far, and it's in all honesty becoming a little bit of an issue. So to help me kind of explain and explore this a little bit more, I have the very talented Gaiapatra with me today. So did you want to just introduce yourself a little bit and kind of what you do?
Sure. Okay. My name's Gaia. I classify myself as a visual artist, so I do art modeling, alternative modeling, photo editing, just anything that's basically like striking visuals. Um, but I'm here to talk about, I guess, the toxicity in fan culture because I've had quite an experience with that.
Yeah, I think actually you put that in a way better way than I could have done actually.
Oh,
Culture, that's awesome. Yeah.
great.
So I mean, we all love music, and music is such a powerful thing, and it can really sometimes be such an extension of who we are and who we identify ourselves as. And sometimes particular bands or artists or genres play such a big part in kind of our lives, and we buy merch, we get tattoos, and all that stuff. And that's nothing out the door. That's kind of a healthy way to kind of process your appreciation. But sometimes it goes a little bit beyond the tattoos, it goes a little bit beyond the t-shirts, and we are just trying to explore today kind of how we can tackle finding ways to acknowledge our appreciation without getting into those unhealthy boundaries, and just that's what we're going to kind of really delve into today, because obviously Guy has had experience of this. For those that may not know, she did for a time date the lead singer of Motionless in White, and during that time and a little bit after that time, she did receive an immense amount of kind of interaction, negative interaction on social media. So would you mind, as comfortable as you are, telling us some of your experience that you had during and after that time?
Yeah, so I've always kind of been private about the things that have happened from the fan base. But I want to talk about it because I feel like if we can get these conversations going about these weird norms, then maybe this won't happen to other people or other women in the future, especially. Um, I feel like because there is such a big gap between certain industries like Hollywood, artists, the entertainment industry in general, the lifestyle and privilege that those people have is so just far out of reach from like an everyday person. And I think because this big gap is there and we all like in our own ways acknowledge the gap, I think that it may create this like unhealthy dynamic of fans or really people in general acting in ways that they wouldn't towards an everyday person. Um, and I feel that with the more fame or attention that someone gets, that gap becomes bigger and they get more and more looked at like they're not a real person. And then the people in their immediate circle get looked at that way as well. And I think that we all just kind of need to look at like, how did this become a norm? Why do we see strangers or people that we have very limited knowledge of? How do we see them as so different and treat them in ways that we would never treat like our friends or like a person walking down the street? I think that it could be so many things, but I think a lot of it is there's a different power dynamic at play where one person is being like adored and the other person is obviously the people like adoring them. And I think that through the way that social media is like rapidly progressing, we feel falsely that we kind of know people in different personal ways than we actually do. And then I think people react accordingly as if like, oh, I know this person, I know what they like, I know what they're going through. And the boundary between fans and artists is getting so blurred. And I think that it's sad because I think that boundary absolutely needs to be there, because you are essentially appreciating someone for their talent, their art, something that they're bringing to the world, but you have no place really in like their personal life, nor do you really actually know about it. Um, I just think that the boundaries need to be reestablished, um, and kind of reinforced by both sides, because I feel that the norm for fan culture now, maybe fans aren't aware of it, but it's become very harmful to the artist and the people close to the artist. And I think anytime that an artist is trying to do what they love for a living, but they're realizing over time, like, what I'm doing for a living and what comes with that, like what that generates, is actually starting to deteriorate my personal life, that's when we have like a huge problem.
Yeah, yeah. I think it might have been on one of your Guy and Sarah Save the World episodes or something, but you said at one point, and this has always stuck with me in my brain since you said it, is that people like fill the gaps in the narrative that they don't know with assumptions that they make.
Yes.
And that's like totally carried in my brain since I heard you say, because I was like, that's so true. People do that.
It
Like,
is.
not even with like celebrities, like people that just know snippets of information that they've heard about you, and they're just like, oh, I'm just gonna like fill all these empty holes with things that I've assumed.
Yep, for sure. Um, I think it's totally natural to have a curiosity about someone that you don't have like that confirmation of what they're like on a personal level. Like that's being human. That's totally fine. But people are becoming so certain in their conclusions, and like they're like digging up pieces and making them fit a certain way, or they like hear a rumor and then like run with it and add something onto it to make the story like have some type of like narrative that they want. But the weird thing is, I feel like the narrative that people push when they don't know someone is always a negative one. And I think we have to ask ourselves, like, why do I assume negative things about someone where I have not actually witnessed anything that would prove that?
Yeah. I mean, how long after the relationship was over did you still continue to receive, such harmful messages? And would you be okay maybe sharing any examples of how severe the messages were?
Yeah, so sadly, it is still going on. Um, it never stops, but I do have to say the volume of which it happens is so much less than it used to be. There was like a point in time where every social media account I had, when I would wake up in the morning and do what everyone does, just scroll, I would open and just be like message, comment, all these tags, and it was just all hate. Um, so now it's kind of few and far between, because I think that people have realized that like what they were doing with me wasn't ever really about me, so they're kind of like moving away. Um, but as far as like crazy stuff that happened, it's hard to even pick one incident, because sadly there really are so many. But I would say one of the most impactful moments was, I can't believe that these apps even exist. So apparently there are apps that can fake screenshots through different apps. So like if you're using Instagram Messenger, Facebook Messenger, there are apps generated to create screenshots where you get to type in someone's username, paste like a profile photo and all of that. And people use these apps to generate fake conversations with people that have never happened. And the scary thing is, when you first view these screenshots, you really can't tell. Like, it looks so similar to an actual screenshot that any person just glancing at it would actually believe it. So I have personally, not even just me, other women who have dated band members have dealt with fans that use these apps to make very believable conversations that they're having with the artist or the artist's significant other, and make really inappropriate things, like them having like an affair with the artist while they're in a relationship with someone else. And you would look at it and honestly think that it's real. That did happen to me, and it was actually so believable with how they did it and how everything looked. And it took me and him confronting the person, and then they admitted that they made it all up and used apps, and that they were encouraged to do so because people believed that I was a bad partner, and that justified making up a fake story with fake evidence to try to like break us up. And it's not just specific to me. I've actually seen this happen to a couple other women, and it's always women that are dating band members that have a young fan base.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't even know that there was an app that even existed that was like that. Oh
I
my
didn't
God.
know that either.
I feel like my mind's just gone like, woof. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Um, but I mean, what's your kind of theory on why this behavior even occurs? Like, do you think that, it's maybe something out of like a jealousy thing, but also, is it something that's obviously kind of seen maybe more towards like a male person in the industry to their female partners, as opposed to the other way around? Is that kind of a more common?
At least in my observational experience, I've been friends with people in the music industry for like a long time, so I've gotten to witness these things happen to a lot of other people. And I don't see this level of harassment and like bullying happen to male partners of band members, or I guess actresses, or whatever your dynamic may be. um, I see this happen to women, and it's usually by other women or girls in some cases, but it makes me really sad because I think that we all collectively know that it's hard to be in a relationship and trust another person. And, especially men, it could be hard to trust them in certain industries and lifestyles. And then when you have that like added layer of other women or girls like willing to do things like that to completely like mentally dismantle you and cause so much harm, that's scary. Like that is really concerning behavior. And I think the girls or women that do this stuff, I think they have a lot to unpack about what is your, internal issue that you have with other women, and where is your moral compass? Because we all have our sense of like what is right and wrong, but anything that you're using to justify harassing another person and making things up, I would really have to wonder what like their mental state is. Um, but especially why this behavior is really targeted towards women. Um, like, I mean, I've seen like boyfriends of female musicians, like, maybe they get like slightly bothered, but it's not to like the theatrical extent that I see with other women that date musicians or actors. I think that there may be a lot of internalized misogyny that maybe people haven't unpacked about why they feel more comfortable attacking other women or feeling like they want to put themselves in the middle between two people. Like that's not respecting women. And where's our female support? Like where is feminism in this, you know? It's I think it's a combination of internalized misogyny and maybe like a mental health crisis, because when you obsess over someone that you don't know on a personal level, that's kind of abandoning yourself, because like your life is supposed to be about you. And when you're dedicating that much time and attention to a stranger, I think that that's a big indicator that something's really off that needs attention.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because I've seen it, like, I think a lot of people see it even in small quantities, like over the internet or at gigs. How many times have you been to a gig and you hear someone down the queue going, if I see so and so come out, I'm going to jump on them. And they're not going to. If they see them, they're probably going to just seize up and be like shell shocked. But we hear it and we see it. And I think a lot of people have also this obsession, I think, with younger people, with this having to be the number one fan and doing
Yeah.
everything that they possibly can do to be the number one fan. And like there is no number one fan. There's no one person on this entire planet that loves a band or a person or an actor more than anybody else in the billions of people. Like, I'm sorry if that breaks it to anybody, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
But I think people take that as it might be like another thing mixed in with being unhealthily obsessed or needing to unpack stuff. But yeah, just like, you can buy the merch, you can have every piece of merch going that they've ever released. That's fine. But this is I'd say ruining, but it's affecting people's lives, their mental health. And I wanted to give everyone just kind of another example of someone that was quite big in the media in the UK a few years back. Unfortunately, she ended up like committing suicide. Her name was Caroline Black, and there's a documentary on Discovery Plus that you can watch about the life and the career of Caroline. And I wanted to just bring this up because it is very similar in kind of theme. And what happened at one point was she was giving an interview to One Direction, like quite earlier on in like their career, and she said something to Harry Styles along the lines of like, "Oh, who's the favorite person that's been on the show so far, whatever." And he kind of flirtatiously was like, "Oh, Caroline Flack," to her, and it was all a bit kind of flirty and stuff. The amount of hate that she got after that for what he said to her, people calling her a whore, people calling her a pedophile, and things like that. And she hadn't done anything. He told it to her, but it was the fans that were just so jealous that she'd received that interaction. And it's like, guys, come on.
Yeah. Stuff like that is always strange to me, because I think the concept of feeling jealousy towards someone that you don't ultimately know and what they do with other people is very bizarre, because that would imply that fans, or even young fans, have some type of like romantic chance with the person that they're a fan of. And I think that like there are a couple examples of couples that may have come out of like an initial like fan situation where they were a fan and then they started dating. But most of the time, that dynamic is not good, because it's a massive disproportionate power dynamic. And a relationship is supposed to be where you view someone as an equal. You are not obsessed with them. You see them as a human being that you're going to hold accountable, and you don't put them up on a pedestal. Like, that's not healthy. So, like, I think this fantasy belief of thinking that if you play your cards right, you can end up dating someone that you're like a huge fan of. It's got to be addressed, because it's creepy. It would be creepy for an artist to date someone that's a fan that's obsessed with them. Like, that's creepy. That's like almost predatory at that point. Because that's not what adult intimate relationships are like. You don't see someone as like a god that you would die for. You see them as just like a human being that you have like a genuine connection to, that you want to see where it goes. So I think if fans can start addressing the fact that you're not going to date these people, you're just not, and that's just how it is, then maybe like the strange attachment and jealousy that comes with the interactions that the artist has with other people can maybe like be pulled back down to like a rational level. And again, like maybe we can begin to normalize that you just don't go and harass someone. Like the example that you gave, like people harassing her, that's like, not only is that awful to her, but that's also really embarrassing for the artist that this involves, because in a weird way, artists feel like almost somewhat responsible for like what their fans can do to other people, because it is because of them that these things are happening. And they don't like that. They hate when fans harass them and their significant others, their friends, their family. Like they actually like despise it because it makes them very uncomfortable. So I think if maybe fans can be like, hey, this artist that makes me happy and creates this stuff that like brings joy to my life, I actually bring them unhappiness when I act this way. I think if that can be established, then maybe like fandoms can become more healthy and not so harmful to the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything that you can kind of give fans, I guess, as advice to just not crossing those lines? Things that, I don't know, maybe in the moment aren't always so obvious when they're trying to interact online or something. Something that can make sure that both partners and artists in the future are just a bit more respected with healthy boundaries.
Um, I think just keep in mind that the way that you're treating someone, regardless if they're an artist or however you see them, that's going to impact how much the artist wants to share of themselves and of their life. And if you enjoy hearing about their life and who they are and the depths of their personality and having them open up, you have to treat them with respect and practice normal boundaries, the kind of boundaries that you would practice with someone that you know. You wouldn't just go and harass them and stalk them and make up things. You don't do that. You have to show respect. um, I think understanding that the role of fan to artist is appreciation for what they're bringing, and it stops there. Like we have to acknowledge that it really does stop there, because if you're claiming to be a fan of someone and care about them, you don't want to have a negative effect on their life or their personal life. You want to be a source of positivity so that they will make the decision to keep going with their career, because people do make decisions to stop what they're doing when their life becomes so toxic. And that's probably the last thing that us as fans of anyone ever want. So no one wants to have the day where their favorite artist is like, I'm out, this is not worth it. So it's just doing your part to keep the environment empathetic and mature. And when you see something that you know is like a violation of someone's privacy or just wrong, say something about it. Don't go along with the behavior. Like uphold respect for the person that you're claiming to respect.
I think going off of that as well, a big reason why I kind of wanted to have this chat as well was for people watching it, is that you guys might know somebody that does act like this or is showing signs that they act like this. And now would be a good time to maybe start asking those questions and seeing if maybe your friends or your family or whoever or yourself are crossing these lines, and it should be maybe addressed that maybe now's the time to maybe say something, be like, maybe you shouldn't be writing these comments and things like that, because I don't know, maybe someone just generally just not realizing that, I mean, they probably are if they're getting, as bad as generating screenshots, but it's always good to try and intervene when you're seeing this kind of behavior. But lastly, is there anything that you would like to kind of bring up on the subject that you think is important? Like there's sorts of influential factors that you do believe contribute to this sort of behavior, age, or
Yeah, like I definitely think that age plays a big role in this. Especially like if we're talking about the demographic being teenagers, because teenagers are still figuring out who they are, and that's why they're more likely to have like obsessions with artists or bands, because when your identity isn't solid, you like take one thing that you're into and make it your identity. So I think I think part of it is definitely age related. Um, I think that that still doesn't excuse harm that you can do to other people, though. So, like, holding yourself accountable still matters. But I also think that I feel like, the world's in a mental health crisis. Like, that's not deniable. But I do think that that can play into it because with untreated, like, mental health issues, people do make decisions that they wouldn't normally do. They get like a diluted sense of who someone is and what's happening, and it probably isn't happening. Um, but I also feel like because this fan behavior disproportionately affects women negatively more than men, that there is that layer of misogyny that we all have to look at. No one wants to look at it, but you have to look. Like, if you oftentimes speak badly of other women and you don't even know them, this is misogyny. And it can't be, the scapegoat can't be, oh, well, I'm a fan and I just feel this way because I'm jealous that this person's dating this person. You're still saying harmful things about women. And we collectively have got to stop doing that no matter what. Like, catch yourself when you go to speak about someone you don't know, or maybe you just saw a photo of someone and you're like, oh, they look like, and then you create some kind of backstory of like who you think they would be based on a caption or, something. You have to remember this is misogynistic, and I don't know this person. I don't know who they are. Like, we need that.
yeah, and absolutely. Well, thank you so much for like just agreeing to talk to this about the subject with me. I really appreciate it, and um, yeah, like it's so important because I just see it on Instagram like every single day, just comments and just even things that you think are just genuinely like nice things that are still just overstepping that boundary. Like suddenly someone's every favorite color, every favorite restaurant, every makeup palette that they own, every this and that, and like they're not negative necessarily, those little things, but they're still very obsessive. So for a lot of people, like if you find yourself like catching yourself doing those little things, suddenly everyone's life backstory, what time they were born, what hospital they were born in, and things like that. Like maybe just tone it down a little bit and think about why that information is like so critical to you in appreciating somebody. But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. And I hope that whatever what you're doing next with your podcast and creating art and stuff, I hope the very best for you.
Well, thanks for having me. It's actually kind of nice to talk about this stuff after all these years. And I just hope that everyone will maybe think a little bit more about this stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.